Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another great webinar. We've got a very exciting session that we're going to be discussing today, one that's near and dear to my heart because it really dives into a comprehensive scan to BIM process. So we've got one of our experts, Ty Phifer, here with us. We'll do some introductions here in just a second. We'll give everyone a few minutes to get logged in. So we'll kick things off in a second, but we've got Noorda Tech and Ty, going to be discussing a really large and again comprehensive project. One that if you don't have a coffee, now that we're given a few minutes, everyone recommend for the theme of the day, going and grabbing a little coffee as we go through our session. You can keep coffee and avoid the COVID, but this is going to be full coffee and reality capture session.
Awesome, James. Excited to share with everyone. This was a fun case from a few years ago, so it'd be good to tell the story, especially now that COVID's behind most of us.
Yep. Which is of course a great blessing. Yeah, I'm very excited about this one too, because especially in the holistic sense, everybody can get a good perspective here with this on how this technology, in your case, really had such an impact on what we had no idea was going to happen, and there's some real wisdom and risk mitigation to consider that, because the future is obviously unknown, but as you look to the future, you can calculate and mitigate risks to a certain degree. And even something as wild and unknown as COVID, where no one expected the country and the world to shut down, which is crazy, for this technology in context of wanting to mitigate risk and alleviate cost in other areas, really set up this customer for huge success that they would have otherwise been in a lot of trouble, trying to get around with all of the restrictions that were put in place.
Yeah, it's really cool how everyone adapted in a difficult time. Just, everybody across the country and the world adapted during that time. But the way that this team performed, our team was involved, but really the engineering and the client teams behind using the product really highlighted what the value of reality capture is in a time like this. So yeah, we'll get into all those details.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll jump into that now. So we've gotten just a few minutes. I think people are starting to jump in, and so I guess without further ado, let's jump into the topic. So here, of course, we'll be talking COVID, coffee, and capture. So how in this case, Ty, you were able to, well, again, as I mentioned, alleviate a lot of the issues that COVID presented for a major coffee client. So I guess let's start off just with introductions. I'm James Mosimann. So I'm the customer success manager here for Reality Capture Network. I've been in this industry and technology for almost 8 years, almost 8 years, and then providing and implementing best reality capture technologies, one of them being scan to BIM technology across it here in the United States. And Ty, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having us on. We're excited to be here with the Reality Capture Network to share a story of success in our space, and also get a little bit of exposure to Noorda Tech and introduce the world more to us, as we've been going about our business doing these wonderful projects since 2016. Me personally, been in a lot of different industries, financial, sales, business management, sales management, and then had the pleasure of coming to work for Noorda Tech and being exposed to reality capture after my partner and I were handed a laser scanner. We grew out of a building envelope contractor that had purchased a scanner for the purpose of capturing building exteriors for ACM panel installation. And we've had a number of vendors tell us since then that we started our scanning journey on hard mode. It was like aerospace for buildings, trying to get the tight tolerances that industry requires. Made us really up our game from the get-go, and be able to produce a high quality point cloud, and then learning all the different ways that that can be applied. And we actually no longer work inside that company anymore. We're all across the country, serving clients in the architecture, engineering, etc. And actually, I think on the next slide, we have a picture of many of the places that we have worked at Noorda Tech. I don't even think we have all of our projects on there, but you can see we travel the whole country capturing sites for our clients. And it's been a fun journey. We've done everything from single family residences up to entire interior or exterior malls. The funny thing about COVID, as I say mall, it just brings it all back. We scanned an entire mall during COVID when it was shut down, which is a great time to scan one of those if you ever get the opportunity. Probably, hopefully, we never get that opportunity again, but it was a good one. But we used terrestrial. We started out that way. I was our lead field person when we started doing terrestrial scanning, so I have extensive experience in terrestrial scanning. And then we always felt like for our architectural clients that we were swatting flies with a sledgehammer, and we needed a way to capture large projects for architectural reality capture faster. So we researched the world of SLAM scanning, and we now use Navis VLX as after testing others and do a lot of SLAM scanning on our architectural capture as well. And I led that as well. So kind of developed our workflow. I love the art and science mix of our workspace. Every project that you go into is a new problem, a new challenge to solve. And you go in there with the rules of engineering and science and the way that the scanners work, but then you have to adapt that to the art of each project and making it flow, making it work, whether you're linking terrestrial scans together and getting proper overlap, or you are using a SLAM scanner and having to have proper loop closures to make a great point cloud. So it's a fun challenge for us. We've also launched a drone program that we use. We incorporate on most of our projects, we're incorporating at least 2 of our sensors into that single project. And this one on the left that we're showing at the top of a mountain was a super fun project we got to complete this year for a radio and TV tower project. And what you're looking at there is combined TLS, SLAM, and drone data all in one unified point cloud. And our team is putting those tools together on a regular basis and creating that unified point cloud for our clients and then for ourselves to do the modeling after that, and then delivering to our client in a format that is native to them. Most people are not savvy with point clouds, but they love Revit models, AutoCAD, ArchiCAD, whatever their software is that they work with in-house. If you can plug into their workflow and deliver them a tool that they're used to seeing, then it's a huge win for them as a business to be able to have a digital twin of the project that they're working on for a retrofit, remodel, whatever the case may be, to be able to draft and make changes from what's actually in the field. And that's really what we're going to talk about, is how, in this case, having that digital twin, having that Revit/AutoCAD Plant 3D model set this client up for success during a difficult time.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. I think that's really all very well said. And I love how, we'll be diving into a pretty technical application here in a moment, but just you also shared context on this one, more land focused. There's the towers that you have here, and I don't know what the specific ask was, but encompassing an area like this, you said combining the art and the science of the two, combining your, survey pieces with the right technology to capture large, more terrain type area versus the really detailed and tight-knit spaces. There's really quite a difference that goes into, one project like this and then the one that we'll dive into here a little more hands-on.
That one was a full interior exterior with multiple use cases, but 100-year upgrade is coming to that site to get it ready for the next 100 years. So anyway.
Awesome. So let's jump into this project a little bit, and some of the details and some of the work that was really involved to make this happen. And if we can, we'll talk a little about, obviously the client, at least as much as we can. I know some things that we can and can't discuss in detail, but what is the process look like for everyone listening of even getting into this sort of a project, because this is, as we have on screen, Fortune 500 coffee roaster. And, a lot of people who work in this technology, the goal is to get into Fortune 500 companies, people who are doing this kind of work and who have the money to pay for this kind of work. Sometimes they're hard and slow to move because they're behemoth organizations that have a lot of red tape. So what does the process look like for getting into something? How did you guys, work together to partner with this? And then let's talk obviously about the job and the project itself.
Yeah, so getting into those larger companies isn't always the easiest thing to do. The way that we did it on this project was we're based in Salt Lake City, Utah. As I said, we travel the whole country doing the work that we do. But our direct client was the engineering firm that works primarily in the food space, and they're in our same city. And I made a connection with someone that works there as we graduated from the same university, go Wildcats, Kansas State. And we just made a friendship and then talked about the way we could add value to each other. And he hired us to do a project in a cereal factory. And we successfully completed that project. That turned into a potato processing plant, which turned into another potato plant in 3 different states. So they had success with us just by making a personal connection up front and then growing the relationship, delivering a product that made a difference, really proved its value. And then the Fortune 500 company was really forward thinking. They're innovative. They like to try new things. So we were blessed by their culture. When our engineering company was hired for this coffee roaster replacement, and this was one roaster to be replaced in a room that hosted 5, and having to take out all the old, put in all the new, and do that without shutting down production any more than absolutely had to be done. Everyone knows that existing plans are not accurate. If they're up to date, it's probably been changed. Things have moved, things have been added. So somehow you have to go in and verify the existing conditions. Well, the engineering firm went to the client and said, hey, we're going to be here for weeks pulling measurements, trying to figure out what's here, where we can run new equipment, everything, or we can bring in Noorda Tech and they can laser scan everything. It'll take them a few days and you don't have to turn anything off. You don't have to stop roasting coffee. You don't have to get your employees out of the space, and they can capture all the measurements and then disappear for a month or more and deliver us a model that we can then work with to do the redesign, to take out the old and put in the new. So they were bought in. They got on board with that, mainly because of the reduction or the limited impact that we would have to the space. So, we're showing these images. It is a very complex environment. There's a lot of steel. There's a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, process piping, all those things. This is a small portion to a very large facility. And, having the impact and finding a way to capture those existing conditions. Those of you that work in our space reality capture know that there's really no replacement for laser scanning right now. It is the best way to go in and measure everything and capture it. So, yeah, having that low impact and being able to capture everything. And actually, this image that you're seeing on the screen is from the scanner. So that's part of the virtual tour that we created. So our 2 main deliverables to the engineering firm would be the model, which we deliver both Revit and Plant 3D that they then use in Navisworks Manage, and then the virtual tour that allows them to walk the space, be there at their computer, at their desk, as they're doing redesign, et cetera, as they're doing coordination meetings, those kind of things. So is there anything that I missed there on as far as kind of the project setup and how we got in the door?
No. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, obviously with a topic like that, and you're sharing your background, a lot of sales and business development, and that's my background as well. There's enormous complexity that goes into sometimes securing, winning, selling a job, selling your services for something like this. So maybe we can dive into more at the end potentially, and also just for everyone listening, if I didn't already mention this, please feel free at any point to ask questions. Feel free to, there's a little question and answer box. Feel free to chime in, ask anything along the way, and then Ty and myself will drop those in as we go through, or we will have some question and answer time allotted at the end. So Ty, back to your point, did we skip over anything? No, I don't think so. I mean, the sales element and the business winning element is something that I like to really dive into and discuss, because it is it's the critical function of what all this technology has to aim towards. The technology has to make our end clients more successful and profitable at the end. And that is something that has to be effectively demonstrated to, our prospects, to our clients. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, especially with large clients. Sometimes it's just hard to get an in, with large clients to be able to discuss. And then what are the best ways to show the value? And for people who are really in the technology, it's often self-evident. I mean, a lot of people here are probably very familiar with reality capture tools and technology. What is a laser scanner? What can it do? Oh, everyone here could probably, just get up and say, it's awesome. It collects millions of points, maybe millions of points per second, or over 1 million points per second of measurements. And it gives you all of this information, and it's useful in all these different applications. That's great. But how do you convince the person money that it's going to mitigate their risk, it's going to save them money, it's going to do all of those? And that's a deep topic that I don't want to tangent away from the overall meeting too much, but also don't want to overlook, because it's such an important aspect, and maybe that's just because it touches close to me and my trade, at least.
I can agree with you there. A good friend of mine said, a lot of people have a negative connotation towards sales, but nothing in this world happens until somebody sells something.
No, nothing happens until, and really good, honest sales, I believe as well, is it's almost engineering or project management in a sense. You are, communicating honestly for the best of the person that you're working with, but the whole goal is outlining a plan using the best tools and practices and technologies to partner with your client and help them more successfully, confidently, safely achieve their goal. And your product or your services that you're providing should align with them in that entirely. And that's the first absolute necessary part to making things happen. That's a good exchange, a good partnership that people have to make these kind of goals. So I guess I'll just, if there are any other questions, which everyone can probably tell, I'm happy and love diving into the sales piece of things. If there are questions, on the sales aspect or sales element of any of this, please feel free to chime in and ask anything. But unless there is anything, I think, Ty, we can start diving into some of the technicalities a little bit, or to this project. What were the things that you did for this project, transitioning from why did they use reality capture to, okay, what was involved in successfully, completing, executing this job?
Yeah, I loved how this project started. And a lot of projects don't start this way, and I wish more of them did. We get hired every day, and we get sent to a site, and there's somebody there that will open the site for us, and then it's like, okay, go scan it, right? This project, being in an active food environment, being the first time the client was trying something new, and the engineer wanting to help integrate and show the client from our perspective, what we were going to do, how it was going to work. And one of my favorite things to do is to set proper expectations. Clients' stress level goes way down when they know what to expect. So when we arrived on site for this project, there was a coordination meeting. There was, I think, 4 or 5 people from the engineering team were there. There was the people that was affecting their area on site. Those team members and team lead were in that meeting. And then there were stakeholders from the company as a whole, from higher up, that had come into town. And this site was in a different state than where we work. It was a different state than the engineering firm is based in. and it's a different state from the headquarters of the Fortune 500 company. So everybody was coming in from out of town. We all sat down at the kickoff of this project, which was our day one for scanning. And, you know, everybody's eager in our space to get started, right? I want to get up there and I want to start doing my work. But sitting in a conference room with all the people that were involved in the project, talking about, hey, here's why we're doing what we're doing from the project perspective. The engineering team was leading this conversation, but having an opportunity on our part to be able to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's, how we're going to not impact your work as much as possible. We're going to be putting, you can actually see them in this image that's on the screen at the very back wall. There's checkerboard targets. We're going to be putting out spheres. There's going to be a tripod set up, but it'll only be in each location for a few minutes, and then we'll move it to the next, and we'll logically move from one side of the building to the other. We will do our very best to keep our tools and targets out of the way of the people that are working, but still put them in places that they need to be for our workflow. And just painting that picture of what we were going to do, you could just see the whole room kind of settle down and go, okay, this is not really a big deal. These guys are going to come in. They're not going to be a problem for us. So just painting that picture made it better for everybody. And then after that conversation was over, they took us out, did a walk through the space, talked about, the things that are important to capture, which was everything. It's so funny. Like, well, this is important. Yeah. So we need everything, but us sharing with them, once we have this, we're literally measuring everything in the space. You can't go out there with a laser tape. You can't go out there with a physical tape and capture what we're going to capture. And whether it be we're just going to do this one coffee roaster now, or we're going to do 2 more or 3 more down the road, the data's there. We capture everything in a single visit, and we can do whatever we want to do with it from that point forward. The original ask on this project was drafting everything that was 2 inches in diameter or larger, as the engineering firm and the client were trying to save costs. So we were cutting down on that from what we drafted. Every project that we do is customized, different levels of included equipment, different sizes, different scope areas, etc. So everything we try to talk through with our client and figure out what are the key points to make this project a success. How do we capture what's going to make them successful? And today, with so many different sensors available, we're having that conversation so we know what tools to take to the job, what tools to use to capture the environment. In the case of this project and most projects that we do like this, it's going to be TLS scan, terrestrial laser scanner on a tripod, getting that finer point cloud, additional detail that's a little better than we can get from a SLAM scanner. But oftentimes we're doing both. So on a facility like this, like we've been back to this facility multiple times and done other ones like it, it might be a mixed capture. We might do terrestrial laser scan in the heavy mechanical, heavy processing areas, but we might use a SLAM scanner or mobile scanner in the warehouses and office areas to get them that whole picture. And then we're unifying that into a single point cloud. Or we might mobile scan the whole thing just to give that pretty virtual tour while we're scanning this kind of space in black and white, because that's all we need. It saves us money, saves the client money, saves us time. But again, using the right tool for the job and capturing what needs to be captured with the scanner in that case. So once all that coordination was done, then just walking into the space, and we had one person on site, and it took us 3 days to capture these 3 levels, 5 or 6 roasters. I can't remember if this image is cut off and there's one more, but yeah, 3 to 4, 3 days of capture, 1 terrestrial scanner, 1 person, which is, pretty unobstructive from a factory production facility like this. 1 person isn't really that much of a hindrance in the space of capturing it, and be able to walk away with a digital twin of what's there. Super, super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll push over so we can see, overlaid with it, some of the model this amazing Revit model that you built. And we can look at the model in a little more detail here as well. During your capture phase, obviously one of the things that everyone speaks about often, but it's really a critical point for this, the finding the right and the best tool for the job. And this is a terrestrial, laser scanner kind of scenario. Is this an application where you either used, and if you did you need to, and then if you didn't, not need survey control? I noticed that you had spheres throughout the job, so you're using your Faro, terrestrial scanner with the spheres. Did you create survey control, and how did you mitigate, I guess, any drift moving from one level to the next if you didn't? And then was this a recurring job? Was it something you had to come back to the site for multiple times, or was this a one and done delivery? And how did that impact your use of or non-use of survey?
Yeah, this was a one and done. This was a single site capture for this phase. We have been back and added on to this scan since then. This was scanned with a Faro focus at the time. Was scanned in black and white, no color. Everything's pretty much the same color in a space. It's all brown and coffee when you walk away.
There are worse places to scan, worse facilities like this that you could.
Yeah, there are worse things facilities to smell like.
Yes.
It's not quite as good as cookies. Cookies are really nice, but although you do get tired of the sweet, so the sweet smell. But so loop closures are important. Overlap is important. I don't really want to focus on teaching how to create a quality scan in this webinar, but you have to have that overlap. You have to have loop closures. Luckily, we had multiple ways to connect the levels to get a tight point cloud. We did not deploy survey on the original scope, but we have since established survey control at the site because the client pushed back on survey on the initial visit. And then after they said, well, we need to align this to the existing plans. We're like, if we'd have just laid control, we would have had the ability to have something to tie it to. So we now have permanent survey control on the site, tied, geolocated, and any future projects that we do can be tied back into that control. So not used initially, not needed. We did end up with a very tight point cloud, and we have a internal process we use that we go through, not just standard registration, but using some expensive tools to even get a tighter registration on our point clouds before we start modeling. Awesome. I want to jump into the timeline now because this project was scanned in December of 2019, and we finished that. We spent 6 weeks drafting the model for the client, and that was delivered end of January. And that's where the COVID part of this conversation comes in. Our client was super happy with the virtual tour that we delivered and the Revit model as they were ready to kick off their design process, and going to have to make major changes to the building, make major changes to the way that the process piping was going to connect. The new roaster is drastically different than the old one, so the space requirements were very different. They couldn't just build it into the existing structure. In fact, they told us there was 85 tons of new steel added to this building to make the project.
Wow.
So we delivered the model, thought everything was wonderful, thought the project was done, and then COVID hit. And everybody, left their offices, went to their homes, and the client called and said, hey, we can't go back to that site, and the client still wants us to deliver this design and installation of this new roaster on schedule. So needless to say, that's a small challenge. They had budgeted $50,000 to do weekly visits to this site out of state to be able to verify existing conditions as they were doing their design phase, figuring what they needed to take out, how they're going to fit all that new equipment into the building and make it work with the process piping that was already in place. So they called us and said, hey, we know we asked for 2 inches and above, but now we need everything. Can you model down to an inch, smaller if you can? Do you have the data? Luckily, we had terrestrial scanned it and we had used proper settings, so we had that data already. And no additional site visit needed, which was good because it wouldn't have been allowed anyway. And we spent another 6 weeks adding detail to the model. So think about, you've drafted this really cool model with so much information in there, and now you're drafting 1-inch conduit and all the little connection between everything. So we delivered that, and then they began their design phase without ever going back to the site.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. And for this delivery, and I mean, obviously you're talking about scanning, and here you're modeling. I mean, you can just see all of the various equipment and trades. You're talking about modeling all the small conduit and all the additional steel that was brought in. All the trades are being represented here. Did you have to work with different trades yourself, or was that something that you just passed off either to ownership or to the engineer that you were working with? And how difficult, if it was difficult, was it to get everybody on the same page using the same kind of data set, the result, and for you to deliver to each of them if you were delivering to each trade?
Yeah, I'd love to take more credit here, but it has to all go to the engineering firm, as they're the ones that own the process from the very beginning all the way through construction. They are not just a design team, but they're also a construction management general contractor. So after we spent that additional time updating the model, then everything was done on their side. But they shared with us, we're good friends with the people that we work with over there, and they said all the engineering, procurement, permitting phases were all conducted without a single visit to the site, which is a huge undertaking. Normally, each trade wants to go in there and see what's going on, but they held coordination meetings, they held design meetings, they held engineering meetings with all those subs. And actually, I think that the coffee roaster manufacturer was from Germany, so they were doing this around the globe, and having discussions using the model and the virtual tour that we delivered as the basis of the discussion. Everybody's sitting in their own house, having these conversations during this time, and
Wow.
never touched that $50,000 travel budget that they had set aside. And this is probably a good point to point out that our cost, even after adding the additional modeling, was less than the 50,000 they budgeted for travel. So the overall win for this project is our services save the day and save the money. It's a net positive.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's how I guess coming back to the sale piece, that's what it should be at the end. So it's great to see a success, not just a technical success, but a full a full success in the whole scope of the job. Especially providing so much more value than the cost of what they allocated just to one person traveling. One person traveling, and you delivered this. What we're seeing on the screen. Here's the full piece. Like, if you were flying somebody back and forth to this site, and they came back and said, "Hey, here's what you got. And by the way, I modeled everything an inch and up, and it's all perfectly accurate." It's a lot. It's a big ask. That's certainly, I mean, and all the coordination that happened around the country or around the world, huge value. So that's awesome.
Yeah, being able to just, have all those trades looking at and getting copies of, if they requested the model and the virtual tour, to be able to dive in, know what they're looking at, full measurements, all those things from each part of the project. They were talking about all the trades: fire protection, HVAC and plumbing, electrical, process equipment and rigging, process electrical, processing utility piping, structural steel. Everything was tendered, evaluated, and awarded remotely without visiting the site. All pre-construction activities, coordination meetings. It's a lot to undertake, and it was a major shift for everyone to have to adapt. And it just, kudos to the people that were involved in this project. There's a lot of people in the construction space, or at least there's a stigma of people being stuck in their ways and not wanting to do new things. This was a wholesale case of everybody from the client to the engineering firm to every sub adopting a new way to do business. And while it may not be the way that it's 100% done in the future, it definitely highlighted the value of what a tool and a product like reality capture can do for this type of work. Um, just talking a little bit about the how of it for the owners that are on this meeting. Our client loads the model into um, Navisworks Manage is their main tool that they use for coordination and conversation. And they can go in and click on any single item because it's a BIM model. It's a true object. It's not just a mass. They can go in and click on it and hide it or delete it and then make room for the new stuff and then draft, take the digital asset of the new roaster and set it in that model. Everything's sized and scaled appropriately. They can even move it through the building to try to get it to space to know, how they're going to route it to get it to fit in the building to make sure that there's space to do so. And just being able to then once it's in place, now we start drawing all the connecting piping and design, and you're connecting up to existing facilities. There just isn't a replacement for this type of work. There's no better way to do it than starting from true existing conditions. And unless you go capture them right before the project starts, it's not really what's there. You can get super technical and go, well, the building's 80% of what it was when it was designed. Okay, well, those plans are all 2D, not 3D, so we might make mistakes in that translation. That things move over time, things change over time, and those surprises lead to change orders. Change orders lead to delays, and delays lead to more money. And then the end client, the roaster, is unhappy because things didn't happen on the schedule they thought they were going to happen because there were surprises. And our industry is one of the coolest ones out there in the way that our value is so much greater than our cost. So we're just delivering that from a perspective that, at least from the industries that I've worked in previously, and I've been in 3 or 4 different ones, there's just not that same trade-off where when we make a sale, our client wins as big as they do in this space. So it's a fun industry to be in.
That's awesome. I think that's such a great final point. That kind of wraps it all together, that the impacts, and here you can see on screen, there's that financial impact, which is significant. You're providing such a huge win, which really is just it's really purposeful and meaningful to be in an industry where you can know that you're giving true value to the people you're delivering your end result to. And that, in this case, it was a huge financial benefit, but it also had other things that are really helpful and meaningful to your end client as well. In this case, risk mitigation, and there's profits made from how you prevented site visits, the need for site visits through your delivery in COVID. And that's, that mitigates quite a lot, not just financially as it went above and beyond that financial piece, but, making sure that there were government lockdowns, making sure that all permits or whatever are avoided and trying to get people there, making sure everybody is actually safe. And there's, huge, just a lot of, it's a wonderful industry to be. And the evidence for that in this case is abundant.
Yeah, and the challenging part of our industry, I think, is the speed at which things move. The tools are improving every year, right? And historically, once a industry catches on, a lot of that gets in-housed. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, now that the service providers out there have proven that this is a win, then architects and engineers will in-house this kind of work and figure out how to do it themselves. And they absolutely can. They're all smart enough they can. But in order to stay on top of the changing environment, the tools that are coming out, it's a great industry to be a service provider in, because you almost have to have, as we call it, we have to have those mirrors spinning every day in order to get the depreciation on the devices and upgrade them as time goes on. You're just spending so much money on hardware and software that somebody trying to do it in-house, they're going to end up 5 years from now owning a scanner that's obsolete. And not being able to perform to the level that somebody that's doing this every day can do. So it's a great industry to be a service provider in, as the technical bar is really high. The experience level it takes to create a quality point cloud is really not an easy thing to accomplish, even though I know a lot of people on this call have probably done it. But as in the grand scheme of things, kudos to those of you that have. We've even had other people call us and said, "Hey, I've got a project in your area, but it doesn't really make sense to fly up there and do it. Can you guys perform the work for us?" And we're like, "Sure." And we ask what they want it scanned with, and they're like, "Oh, well, we can't even get that scanner to work the way we want it to. So how'd you guys do that?" And we're like, "Well, we figured it out, you know." So there's a tall bar to do this well, and whether it be on the front end with the scanning or the back end with the modeling from point cloud isn't the easiest thing to do either. So at least not to deliver this super high quality in these technical spaces. I mean, a lot of people can do architectural, but it's just fun. It's fun to be able to deliver a service that adds as much value as we do in the reality capture space.
Awesome. I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. Well, I mean, I sure have a few more questions that I can ask away, but I'd like to open, the door just to everyone else here who's, listening, participating, just to ask questions as well. So, I guess with that there, if you have something, there's a little Q&A box. Feel free to just kind of to chime in, but I'll keep asking some of them maybe on the sales side, but I'll try and keep it not too sales heavy. I impact your relationship with either the owner or the engineer. You said the engineer was really the one spearheading this. Is this a case where the, say, excellence provides opportunity? In this case, is this open to more work? You said that you returned to this job site a time or two. How have these kind of jobs and case studies opened the door for you to expand and do more work?
Yeah, the easiest way, in my opinion, to grow a business is to be great at what you do, and under promise and over deliver. And if you can do that, um, repeat business is pretty easy to come by. Then it's just staying top of mind to make sure that your client doesn't forget about you when the next project comes up. And we always want to be better at that. But in this case, we sold the dream on the first project, and that one went off exceptionally well. And communication is important. I think whether it be during the sales process or during the delivery of the product, letting them know how you're progressing on processing the data and creating the model, meeting those time deadlines. And when everything goes easy and you're easy to work with, then your clients are going to hire you again. So really my customer service background, sales management background has allowed me to, I think, be good at that and, meet expectations of our clients, over and over again, being available, being easy to work with, being responsive. They don't ever have to chase us down. Makes that first step easy. And then it's just a matter of, is your product delivering what they expect it to? And if your product is meeting expectations, then now it gets super easy to get that repeat business, because not only are you easy to work with, but the product that you deliver does everything that you said it was going to do and that they were hoping that it was going to do. And then once you've worked together, asking for feedback, and that's something I was going to talk about but kind of skipped over, is after we finished the registration and delivered the virtual tour on this project, the project manager actually went in and labeled systems in there so that we could set the model to include different layers with the layers that they wanted. So this is, mechanical, this is process piping, this is, whatever, because we can go in with our team and make it mostly what it is, but not exactly like the client wants. But if we can deliver that to the level that the client wants it on the different systems, different layers. In fact, for most of our clients today, we're drafting in their Revit template so that when the model shows up at their house, it looks like it was drafted in-house. So it goes a long way to being integrated with that team. We're not a subcontractor anymore. We're a valued partner in executing projects like this. This specific site, we've been back to 3 times since this one, adding on additional areas where we have There's new scope. They're making additional changes, and we had additional scanning and modeling, and it's all one unified project. We just keep adding on to the model, but breaking it into pieces so that they can work with it without it being this behemoth. But multiple sites across the country have also been traveled to, scanned, and modeled that are similar to this one for the same client and many other clients. So
Awesome. We did have a question come in, which I think we addressed a little bit, but I don't know if this was before or after. If you could just share on it more explicitly, what scanners are you using other than Navis? And someone else chimed in, perhaps as a scanner they're using, and Trevor shared I think he's using the X9, or maybe asking if you're using the X9. So maybe you can share what you're using, and then a few other options that people can use, like the X9 or similar kind of grade scanners for people wanting to do this type of work.
Yeah, this project was scanned with a Faro Focus S350. Probably didn't need the 350 range for a project like this, but we used that. We originally purchased that one because we were scanning the exterior facade of buildings and needing to have that reach up high, and have the accuracy at range. A lot of scanners would work for the job. There's a lot of great tools out there. We find the Faro product to be really helpful. We love the single software backend. You buy Scene, you get everything you need, and lock survey control together, all kinds of things. That's super valuable. And our rep's nice to us. We don't have anything against Leica. They make a great product. And a lot of projects get scanned with those are wonderful. Nothing against the X9. Haven't used it, so you could use it. I don't have a ton of experience with it, so Trevor probably knows better than I if the X9 was the right fit for this kind of a project. As far as Navis goes, we own a couple VLXs, and those are VLX 2s. I'm currently looking at VLX 3 as an option, plus the new MLX just came out. So always exploring and testing equipment. In fact, we have what we call the lab here in town, where we have a site that we capture, and we're constantly testing new scanners, whether it be terrestrial or mobile, and comparing those to each other on the same site with survey control. Everything gets locked down, and then we can compare products to each other to decide what tools we're adding, what tools we're replacing, what tools we're upgrading, those kind of things, to make sure that we stay abreast of what's happening in the industry and using the tools that make the most sense for us to get the quality we need for our clients and do it as efficiently as we can. We have one client that's asking us for on some power work to reduce the cost, and we're trying to find the right tool to be able to capture sites in less time. So ongoing testing being done there.
Awesome. I think that's great. I think that's one thing, that we discuss a lot, but as the technology is always improving, it's an ongoing conversation of what is the right kind of tool for the right kind of job. What's the power between, especially you just mentioned the MLX, came out. We just had a session with Navis recently talking about that, some of its capabilities. And that's another exciting piece about being in this industry. Lots of industries are improving and growing, like a lot of big companies. NVIDIA, they're one of our partners, sponsors. They make the news a lot for the new things that they're creating, like how their GPUs are changing. But that trickles down, a lot of that, into our industry, how the hardware improves, how the software improves. Because it's, and almost in the case of construction is very fragmented. I wouldn't say reality capture in a way is fragmented similarly, lots of players, lots of pieces that have to fit together. But each of those, software, hardware being computers themselves and processing speeds, and then the actual laser scanners, and then you've got cloud processing, all of those things just improving and pushing so dramatically. Each one, on its own improving would really push this industry forward. But collectively, it's just creating like an exponential improvement on what you can do. And so keeping tabs, having that ongoing conversation, at least, sometimes I feel that it almost sounds repetitive, being like, what's the right tool? What's the best for that? But it is something that needs that constant check. I think it's awesome. You guys have, as you said, it's called the lab. Is that right? Like,
yeah,
we're kind of dedicated
a site, an outdoor site with a bunch of features and things like that, terrain change. We just named it the lab because we're testing all these different tools in the same space. Um, it's, you talk about being fun to be in this industry. It is a blast. And I'm constantly testing stuff, on the street in front of my house, just trying to figure out how things work, trying to, nail things down a little bit tighter. And my neighbors will be like, oh, that looks like a really cool toy. And, how many people get to do work that is a toy, that I'm like, no, this is a tool. I'm working, I'm not playing here.
Yeah.
This is a tool. They're like, well,
with my lasers.
how many people get to play with lasers and fly drones for their work? So
yeah, pretty awesome. It sounds like it's something straight out of Star Wars, drones and lasers flying around. It's pretty awesome. It feels like that sometimes. It does.
Yeah, one of our first marketing slide presentations to do lunch and learns for potential clients, we had sharks with lasers on their heads just as a joke, because it's fun. It's a fun space to be in. So we're lucky.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Okay, well, fantastic. Well, I don't think we have any other questions here. I think you answered really all of my questions. Maybe Ty, if you have just a couple final thoughts on what some of your biggest recommendations would be to people who are doing or want to get into this work, and what the biggest value, either lessons learned for you or value adds, if you could just sum up in two pieces. What are things that would be really helpful for our audience listening?
Yeah, if you're in this space, I would say have a conversation with your client about what their project is, what they're trying to accomplish, and how we can deliver that as a whole. The more that we are better as an industry, the better that it's going to be for all of us. Our two biggest objections that we get to a new client hiring us is, I've never used it. I don't know how this works. I do it the old way. Or I had a bad experience with somebody that wasn't good at what they did. So I think being plugged in with Reality Capture Network, rubbing shoulders with people in this space that know what they're doing, that are good at delivering a product like this, will help you grow and get better. And the more of us that are better at delivering, the more that we eliminate one of the two, and the more that we get adopted, then the more that it makes it easier. It's kind of standard procedure if you're going to do a retrofit or remodel. And even moving into the new construction space, some of these projects that we've gone in and captured the existing conditions for updated equipment, we've gone back after the new stuff is installed, updated this, scanned it again, updated the model, and then we're delivering that as the final as-built to the client. So we'll get to a time where everything's scanned before, during, and after, I think, in our space, but we won't get there until we're all doing really good work and it becomes mainstream. For the people on the panel or the webinar today that are asset owners, building owners, manufacturing facility owners or stakeholders in that space, give this a shot. I don't think you can lose. The only way you can lose is by hiring a firm that doesn't know what they're doing, and there's less and less of those around. I think a lot of that's been weeded out already. People that thought that a scanner was cool and you could just go buy it and set it around the space and deliver a product, I think those people have pretty well left our industry. At least I hope that they've either gotten better and are delivering a great product, or they're no longer doing that. Give it a shot. I think that you'll find that what it costs to get a service like this performed is going to far outweigh the benefit in reduced travel, reduced site visit, reduced change orders, and reduced time delays. You're going to end up with a more successful project on budget, on time, and you're going to be happy and then want to do it again and again. And together we all win. Together we all grow. And it's a better for the entire industry.
Awesome. I think that's very well said, Ty. And so I guess as we wrap this up, either for our owner side or for people doing this work or wanting to get into this work, encourage you to, connect with Ty, connect with myself. And one of the best ways that you can do that, come learn a little bit more, of course, will be our conference, which is now just a week away. Kind of crazy to think that's the case, but in 1 week, our annual conference kicks off in Boise, Idaho. So encourage everyone to come and participate, learn and shake hands with the best people who are performing this work, also the people who are creating all the technologies we're talking about, and the people who are benefiting from it. So come learn about how it's best utilized, how it's really pushing, and driving people to greater success, meet all the people, network, connect with them.
Yeah,
So,
I'll be there. Come shake my hand. Love to meet you.
yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ty. I think this was great, very informative, very helpful for everyone. We really, love having you here. It's an honor to have you here, and thank you for showcasing and sharing such a great topic, and a great project here with everyone. So thank you, Ty. Thank you, everyone here listening. Hope that this was really useful, informative to you, and we look forward to meeting you at our show, and for you being more connected in our network community.
Thanks, James. It was our pleasure.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.